is we need to say two-sided. Save. So now that when we basically go inside of the sphere, we still see it, right? And on the sphere, normally it sets these things automatically because we set that the material is unlit. However, we're just gonna make sure that cast shadow see that we can't really activate or deactivate that, it's grayed out, and that is because it's an unlit material. However, just to make sure we still deactivate those. Um, I'm not saying this shit breaks, but it's like something for me to make sure that like nothing is causing any issues. Alright, so then we gonna zero it out. And then the scale is locked, we just like set it to 50, for example. That is fairly small, so we just set it to 100. And we maybe even do a little bit more, just so it feels better. Let's do 500. Alright. So this already gives us more what we want. Like, I will delete this cube because I don't know why it's there. Okay, cool. So with that thing selected, we have a couple of options. I think one of the problems that I feel is, like I said, I don't know yet if we're gonna keep the sunlight, right? However, we have a fairly static shot going towards this house here. And the second shot is also kind of like this. Personally, I think it is more interesting if the sun comes from over here or from over here. Because we do get more interest. So if I'm just gonna take the sun now and I will deactivate the snapping for the rotation. So I think it's actually more interesting to have it kind of like this, or to do it the other way around and maybe have it kind of like this. Because then what you can see is we'll get this interesting shadow casting here. If we go into lit, we don't really see it right now, and that is because we actually don't really have a lot of brightness in the sun. What we need to do is actually we need to oh damn, did I close them? We actually need to go back to our references and have a look if we have any image here where we actually do get some like sun direction. But as I said before, those images don't really have any sun. So what I would suggest for now is that we actually just turn the sun off completely, like this. We can bring it back later for how can we say, for artistic reasons. Let's put it like this. So, and I also think it's actually interesting to have some of that stuff back here, right? So for the sake of having it more easy to use, I will move the sky sphere a little bit, maybe kind of like this, because then I can have all the shots available kind of, and I'm still like able to more or less tweak the rotation of the sky. So I can see if I can find something interesting here, something that I would like to see, you know. Actually, it doesn't really make much difference since the sky is so low. So I think I might go with something like this. Where is my sphere? Let's move it a little bit over here so I can tweak it in this shot. Yeah, it doesn't really make much difference. Um, so I think I'm gonna keep the sky like this for now. What we can always do though, is like we can fake easily. It doesn't really matter. So we can also, well, uh, we can also really, really move the sky up. And let's say 5,000, 8,000. Because we don't have to be exactly at the horizon for those shots, but maybe it's more interesting to have like some of the nicer shapes or colors visible here. Maybe let's try even using 10,000, kind of like this. Okay, now what I also want to do is, just for the sake of having it, um, I will add a multiplier for the intensity of the sky. One thing just to note is I don't always make instances because right now you can also tweak parameters in real time from the main material. So I obviously I build instances, but I like for this, for example, I don't think it's necessarily important to have an instance for this material if you're not swapping the cube maps, for example, or something like that. We're just gonna save that, cancel that quickly. So we're gonna call that sky emissive. Whoops. Sky emissive strength. And obviously it's not gonna be 0. We set it to 1. Save that. And I will tweak this material now off screen a little bit just to see what I'm getting. So yeah, for now I'm gonna stick with 1. Okay, so step 2. We have the captured scene lighting now. What I prefer doing, actually I haven't tested if it really makes a difference, but if you have an HDR cube map from that image that you're using as a sky, I prefer inputting that cube map image here because you can specify the resolution and all that stuff and you get basically the full HDR quality of that texture. My brain tells me that this is the better quality than capturing that same sky from the sky dome via the skylight. So eh, I would actually use specified cube map now and just drag in my sky image, but I can't because it's not an HDR file since it's the free cube map. So, but if you want to do this properly, I would set the cube map resolution to 512 for really nice quality and then put in the HDR image here and then match the source cube map angle with the sky dome that you made. Now we're gonna just capture the sky dome and we can see that it's already a lot darker, and that is because we are really capturing that sky. There's like nothing else is here. It's just really this dark and moody kind of winter sky that we're using for this. Also, we get shit tons of green bounce, which might not be what we want. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into this. And now I'm just fooling around because this is me trying to find the values that I actually really like. So now I'm gonna grab this color and let's see how that looks. So that already looks a lot more like what I would usually expect to get. If we go back to lighting only, we can see still this is all fairly dark. but it's actually kind of like the darkness that we want. I'm going to delete this point light here as well, because I don't like starting out with fake lights in the beginning. So now we can also see that we already get like lots of more bloom and stuff like that, even that we didn't actually tweak any of the exposure settings or all that stuff. So now what we actually need is we need more light coming from the skylight. So we gonna brighten this up a tiny little bit. What we can also see is that maybe some of these lights here, they are a little bit too strong. So what we can do for now is okay, so there's a couple of lights, huh? Okay, cool. So for now, I'm just going to delete the lights. Because what we have in the images from Simon, it's a very simple nature lighting, and then we got a couple of pops. And as we already analyzed his style before, we can actually see that. Wait, is this a group? Bum, 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 bum. Okay. Wow. Yeah. So like what we can do is basically we can paint or we can light our image the same way that he paints his images. So we basically first we paint the environment and we try to get the look as close as possible just with a few basics. And then we will try to add in the things that we kind of like need to make stuff pop, right? If you see things like this here, those are artifacts from the distance field lighting. What I like to do is, no, not here, go into editor preferences and keyboard shortcuts and then distance. Oh, sweet, it actually kept mine. Alright, cool. So I like to have visualize distance field ambient occlusion on one shortcut and visualize mesh distance fields. So if we do this, we can see that is the ambient occlusion that we get from the distance fields, right? Fairly good, but we can see that we have an issue here mainly. If we deactivate that and we look at the distance field itself, those are the distance fields that we are getting, and they are not really nice yet. They have several issues, and this stuff here is what's causing us this super ugly shadowing behavior here. So the thing is, what we need to do is, so this one looks kind of okay. This one seems to be part of the house, and that is actually not good. Um, so if you work with distance fields, you would want these to be individual pieces, because that is the problem is the way distance fields work. It's a volumetric texture, so everything that has negative shapes or round shapes will need a lot more resolution. So basically, if you take away the stair steps and the little roofs, that house is a positive shape. But with that roof, we actually generate this kind of like negative shape in here. And this is really, really hard to get nice distance fields for. So what we need to do is we actually need to open the distance field resolution on that object. I'm going to try out something crazy now, like crazy is actually 5, 3 is not that crazy. I start with 3, but it might happen that we need to go up to 5. So I'm gonna hit apply. Now you can see it's rebuilding the mesh distance field, and now that stuff becomes invisible. And why is this piece still here? Okay, so we got two pieces actually. So we got one is part of the building, the other one is the roof separately. So let's look at the roof as well. I think we need to up the roof as well. This is also built in a way that is not really great for distance fields. Um, but that's just a problem that is like my opinion. I think distance fields are fucking awesome, but the thing is, I don't think that the feature is really there yet, especially if you want to build more complex scenes. The feature was actually developed for Fortnite, and Fortnite has like a stylized graphics, and so they have a different shape language, and they build things with a different fidelity. So the more high fidelity your meshes are, the more complicated it can actually be to get nice looking distance fields for them. So we'll just like try to quickly optimize those. The robot, man, the robot needs a new distance field as well, and since he has these little legs and so on, it could potentially be very tricky. Um, but it doesn't matter. We will just try it and see what happens. So I'm also gonna choose 3, and it's building and building. Yeah, that shit takes for ages. So yeah, better build them all and then like be happy. Basically, like if you're starting something, uh, go into the distance field view mode and just try to make all the distance fields work before you start working with the scene. So that's also very crucial that you just double check are all the assets working in a way that they're supposed to make it work nicely. All right. mm, Gonna go out on that view and just let it build right now. So one important thing that we can see right now is I think value-wise we're actually getting close to what Simon has in his scenes. Like if we just look at that, there's a softness to the image, um, but we're still lacking the overall tone. Like if you look at those images, how blue they are, right? I mean, this is it's really fucking blue. I mean, even here, like snow is supposed to be white, but this is like turquoise snow. It's like underwater snow or something like that. Um, this stuff is quite tricky to get only via lighting. Um, there is things that we can do to kind of like fake it, at least with the lighting as well. So one thing, for example, that we can do is we can go into our cube map and we can actually start tinting the light, as you can see, right? So I'm like really just tinting the lighting of that thing. And as you can see, tons of pretty crazy shit starts happening. But it's actually pretty funny to try those things out because, as I said in the beginning, there is many ways to roam, and it doesn't always matter as long as you get the job done, especially in an environment like this where it doesn't matter because it's not a game. So the potential of breaking certain things that need to work when you can like walk around freely is actually fairly different. So if I just increase the intensity of the skylight now, I'm just like doing some crazy things here. Just like trying to get in here. But now what you can see happening is we completely mess with the colors of the trees. Like this is really doing us no good. If I go back here, we get all this color back. So we can see maybe not really what we want. So let's go back to this. I'm gonna make it fairly brighter. Or wait, no, I'm not going to. Because I'm gonna touch it via the post. So one thing, I'm just trying to get past with the time as we build these distance fields. One thing that is fairly important is Unreal has, in my opinion, it has one very big problem when it comes to lighting. And that is there is an inconsistency of how Unreal deals with values. To illustrate that, if I have a light source, right, and I drag this light source in here, you can see the default value is 5000. And if I go down here, you have something, use inverse squared fall off, right? If you read the tooltip for that, if you're using inverse square fall off, it means that the light's intensity is in units of lumens, where 1700 lumens is a 100-watt light bulb. That is very important because what it tells you is you can go to the hardware store and buy a lamp, one that you have at home, like a light bulb. And then you can see how does that light bulb look when you put it into your living room. And then you can read on the box of the light bulb, you can read what's the lumens of that light bulb. So for example, I have many light bulbs in my apartment here that are around 1200 lumens. That is actually fairly bright. So if you go into an interior, like this light with 1500 lumens is enough to brighten my whole living room, and it's not a super small living room. So that is actually fairly bright. So what you can see is like my living room kind of looks like this when it's lit with that light. Problem is this is 5000 lumens. So let's say we put it to 1200. Well, sorry, 10 too much. Now it looks like this. That's not how bright my the inside, so to say, of my living room looks. And this tells me that the exposure setting is not exposing the image in the same way my eyes are exposing my surroundings. And the problem, I believe, or at least that's my opinion, in Unreal is that Epic hasn't yet decided where they use what sort of value. So you do have lumens for local lights. However, the skylight, it has an intensity of 1. And like, what does that mean? I mean, like, what's an intensity of 1? The same goes for the directional light. I mean, normally, like, in Frostbite, for example, we use lux on the directional light. And it makes more sense because you can figure out how to set up your lights in a mathematical way first, because there is like rules, right? There's like, I mean, people have been photographing for years and years, and there's tons of knowledge when it comes to photography and measuring brightness and things like that. And there's, for example, there is the Sunny 16 rule, and the Sunny 16 rule is actually super amazing. Sunny 16 rule, and it's basically a rule about how you have to set up your exposure depending on man, are they small? Depending on what time of day it is, because uh, basically photographers, they have been measuring the intensity of the light and of the sky, and they are all in relationship. I'm looking for a specific image, one that we have at work that I like very much, but it seems I cannot find it. But basically, what it tells you is the correlation you can see here, the f-stops and all that stuff. So it tells you basically if it's bright but cloudy, you would normally use like this kind of like exposure setting. And then what we did at DICE is we actually went around and we measured the brightness of the sky and we measured the intensity of the sun when hitting certain surfaces under certain conditions. And the cool thing is that it kind of like removes a lot of guesswork. This is one big problem with Unreal, though, because you can't say, okay, my sky has 3,000 candela and my sunlight has 120,000 lux, so I need to blah blah blah. Like you can't really do that. So you have to kind of like do it by eye. And this brings us to this important thing that we need to do. We need to go into the post-processing settings and we need to adjust our exposure before we make the skylight any like brighter. We need to adjust the exposure, right? Because it looks like we don't see enough of the surroundings right now. So it feels way too dull and too dark, and it's super easy to now go in and say like, hey, skylight intensity 5. But that's kind of like a fake fix, I would say. So the first thing that we need to figure out is what is our actual exposure, right? So now we have the setting at automatic, right? And automatic means if we set these values, like then it starts using those values. Um, there is one problem that I will hopefully tackle in a later video. Is I'm actually trying on setting these up in a way that they make like sense with like real like f-stops and so on. But so far I was not able to completely get it to work the way that I want. So what we can do is on the visualize we can open the exposure. um, yeah, exactly. So we can basically, the blue line that you see moving around is where are the values that I can see, and the white line is where it's trying to adjust to, right? And then we have the histogram log min and log max, and you can see like there is like -8 on the left side, and there's like 4 on the right side, and those are actually these kind of values here. So this range here, the green window, is showing us the range that we specify with min brightness and max brightness. So if I start upping this value, you can see how it forcefully moves those histogram ranges closer together. And if I go into this again, you can see that the more I kind of like up this value, it basically stops brightening, like it stops making it brighter under a certain threshold, right? The upper value is when you look into the sun. So what we want to do is we want to adjust this min brightness. Okay, 0 is like we don't want it to get this bright. But what we want to do is maybe like 0.1, nope, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. Okay, we actually might want to get something like this. All right. So if we look at this in relationship to this, it's not that bad. It's just quite foggy, and it lacks a certain crispness, right? But if we just look at the overall brightness and try to get rid of the fog here, it looks already very, very, very close. So this is really important, setting these values up correctly. And now you can see that this light bulb of 1200 lumens here actually makes quite a lot of light. It's fairly nice. It's not, it seems like a proper light bulb, just intensity wise, right? So now we have that, and it kind of like makes sense, right? So the second thing that we want to do is we need to decide what sort of tone mapper we are using. That is extremely important to nailing the look down of the scene. And you maybe you're start thinking now like, what the hell is a tone mapper, right? And it's not super simple to explain it, but it's basically like Unreal renders the actual image in HDR. So, shit, gotta deactivate autosave. Um, so it renders HDR, and those values they don't translate one to one to the range of the screens, which is like, we render in HDR, but we watch it in LDR. And for that, we need to have a tone mapping curve that takes the HDR values and brings them into LDR range. And there are different tone mappers actually that can do that. And it's it's a super complex topic, and it's very, very interesting to actually try to understand those. And you can see in the bottom of my screen I have this output log. And in the output log you can enter console commands. I don't like the you can spawn a console here with the button press as well, but I don't like that one because I like to see what goes on in the output log, because the output log can give you information as well. So there's many, many, many commands here. So actually, if you go on help, console variables, you click that, it saved this file where you can see here. And this one is an HTML file where you can open it, and you can see now it's searching for r dot anything, right? And everything that starts with r dot are like render commands, for example. Like here you can see r ambient occlusion, max quality, and stuff like that. Um, those are quite some sweet commands. Like there's a lot of commands in here. And what you also can do is like you can change settings and runtime with these commands. But what's actually even better is if you go into your scene in your project folder, you can go into the config folder, and there's a default engine INI. If you open that, it looks kind of like this. Cancel. And what you can do is you can actually like put in all these R commands in here. So you can see Sarah, she already enabled the mesh distance fields in the project, set them to true. So automatically the engine boots with those true. What I can also do is I can just type in r.ssr.quality and then equal, where is it? Here, equals 4. And now the next time I start the engine will automatically use the highest possibility, the highest possible SSR quality. The same you can do it for the tone mapper. You can type like r.tone mapper blah 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 something. So basically all these commands that you can trigger via the console, you can put them in here, and then Unreal actually loads them per default. So what we can do to find out what we actually like is we can just like r.tone mapper, and now you can see Unreal actually gives me a couple of like things that I can choose. So you can say r tone mapper quality, r tone mapper sharpen, tone mapper 2084, tone mapper 709, AC's inversion, film, gamma, HDR, output gamut. So what you can do is you can just type r tone mapper and nothing else, and just hit enter, and it doesn't say anything. Sweet. No. So what we can do is we can try to find out what is Unreal using right now. Okay. So we can say, for example, tone mapper film If we don't say anything else, we just say tone mapper film and hit enter, you can see tone mapper film equals 0. So it's not using the film tone mapper. We can also try 709. It's also 0. What we also can try is r.tonemapper space question mark. Let's hope that works. Maybe we need more info. Nope. Okay, does not work. Let's say tone mapper film question mark. All right. See that worked. So what we can see is like help for our tone mapper film. Use new film tone mapper. Well, that's not really a super great tip. However, so basically you can choose different styles on how the curves get applied of your image. I have a link here. I can also put that link into the YouTube video description. And that's a very good article actually about tone mapping. And one interesting thing is Unreal is with the filmic tone mapper, they are using the AC's tone mapper. The AC's tone mapper is from the, oh gosh, it's from the movie blah 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 collaboration Oscar thingies, like from some film studio guys in Hollywood. It's like a crazy tone mapper thing, and so this AC's tone mapper is now supported in Unreal. Um, there's also the Happle tone mapper, which is the one used in Uncharted and the Unity engine. And it's super interesting to just see what tone mapping actually does. So what we can do is here are a couple of example images, and it's really interesting. So on the left image, you can see this is the Hubble tone mapper. This is what Uncharted uses. In the center, we have the original HDR. That might actually be the one that Unreal uses per default. And then right, we have the AC's tone mapper. And you can see how each of those tone mappers does different things to the image. Honestly, personally, I think that the Hubble tone mapper looks the best out of these three. There are certain things with AC's that I don't necessarily always like. So for example, if you take this right image here, you can see that the red values are very saturated, and that these white values, they're almost losing detail. We can see that here on the FedEx car very nicely. You can see on the left image, let's try if this works. It's a little bit, it's not so crisp, but you can see the FedEx car is very white. And we see all the details with the Hubble tone mapping. If we go onto the right, we have a more cinematic contrast on the image, but we lose a lot of details on the car in the bright spot actually. And that is something that the Hubble, that the AC's tone mapper is very, it's infamous for it, let's call it that. And that is actually, it crunches the blacks. We can see that here as well on the left side, here down in this little restaurant area. We see quite a lot more stuff, and here on the AC's tone mapper, it just crunches the blacks. So this is something fairly interesting, and we kind of like need to decide what tone mapper we use, because that is the important part. If we go into our post-process volume here on the right, these grading tools here, they change depending on what type of tone mapper you use. So for example, if I want to go in here now and I want to tint the shadow, like let's say tint the shadow, make it like super blue, right? We need to adjust the amount. And this here you can see how I basically tint my shadows blue, right? If I switch to the filmic tone mapper, these settings, they don't even work anymore, because the filmic tone mapper has its own kind of settings. And this is just important because I believe it makes sense to start out with settings that you want. So you need to be kind of aware, okay, I like the basic look of the AC's tone mapper, so I'm going to use the film tone mapper, but that means I can't use those values in here, which on the other side means that if you want to achieve a certain look, for example, taking the shadows and making them more blue, you might actually need to do them via a lookup table, which is fairly easy and fine to do, you know, like you can just take the image and say like I need the dark values and I want the dark values to be a bit more blue. That's totally possible, but you need to decide first what you want to do. So let's make this image a little bit larger and maybe take this shot, turn off all the game related stuff here. And now let's see what we actually get when we try different tone mappers. So I think, yeah, see now we're using the tone mapper HDR. So that is actually the one that we just saw um, in here. So that is the one in the center. And it's not, I don't really recommend using it. Uh, Honestly, I really like the 709, which is set to 0 now. So what we can do is we can type in our tone mapper 709 space 1. Did you see what happened? We got some little changes to our curves on the image. I can just go back and say 0. So you can see it already crunched it a little bit. You know, we got less definition in the darks, and we just have a stronger curve. That is actually based on a Kodak film, if I'm remembering it correctly. So 709 was like a TV standard for a very long time, and it has quite a nice and soft look to it. If we go to the tone mapper film, however, and type 1, did you see how much increase of contrast we actually get here? It's pretty insane. It's like a super strong contrast tweak that we are doing here. However, um, don't like jump out of the window screaming like, nah, all my values are gone, all everything is just fucking black and I don't see anything anymore. Luckily, we have those values here. So what we can do is we can go into film. Um, we can actually go into the slope, toe, and shoulder, and we can start adjusting some of them. You know, like if we just take the slope a little bit to the left, we already get some of the definition in our values back here. We can also see if the toe makes it too washed out, don't like it that much, and the shoulder is not where we're having the problems here. So we do have some control over it. Also, I need to get rid of some of that fog. This is bothering me a little bit here. Yeah, let's make it not that foggy. That's really a lot of fog. Um, Also, like I guess many people know that the height fog is actually uh, makes a difference where you actually put it in your world. So also start distance, I would never do 0. I would really try to do um, just a couple of 100 units, so it's not like full in your face, because being somewhere around here, it's really hard if you have let's make this fog stronger. If we have this strong fog and we like it really starts in front of the camera, and it takes away a lot of the scene. So I would like go for whoops, 200, 500, uh, let's say 250. Um, I think if I'm not mistaken, that's actually meters. So like it's 250 units, it's like 2 meters and 50 centimeters. Alright, so we do have a lot of ground fog here as well. Cool. Um, so we have that. Let's see if if we tweak the fog color slightly towards a little bit more blue and cold. Actually, I want to bring back the sun now. Boop. Alright, and I want to make it super, like just a tiny little bit. However, I'm gonna make it strong first, and I'm gonna choose a color that I really like. Something very strongly evening style, like this. And then I'm gonna go down quite a bit. Just super subtle. Okay. And now, I'm gonna go back to the post. And we have several options now of making kind of like what we want. So we're using the filmic tone mapper now. Of course, we can do these things here, right? But we can also try to use these settings here. I think they should actually work with the filmic tone mapper. Yes. But they're so unintuitive to tweak. um, so let's try and grade it here first. So we just add a tiny little bit of blue to the scene, and now we see that we are still way too dark with our values. So even though we adjusted the exposure, we don't want to raise it too much more because otherwise we're going to lose value on the sky. So I'm trying to get some more value out of this here. And I'm going back to my post settings. Gonna turn this slightly more bluish. And now I notice something. I noticed that because of the intensity of the sky, we actually do get a lot of not so nice looking specularity here on the grass. So what I actually need to do is, and I thought so in the beginning as well, we might need to reduce the intensity of the specularity here. Let's see, I have no clue about all these materials. Hello? Okay. So what I'm gonna do is for the sake of making this easy, I'm just gonna reduce the specularity for now. 0.15 maybe. And I actually don't know if this is like affecting most of the grass now, but we'll see. Okay. Seems like it's not affecting any grass at all. Let's have a look here. What do we have? Grass brown, berry, blueberry, grass one-sided. Grass brown and grass one-sided. Okay. Green grass, green grass, green, green. Okay. This is just a quick fix that I'm doing right now. So be careful, because obviously I'm kind of like breaking PBR right now. I would try to compensate for this with the roughness. Um, but I have to say that I still sometimes use values for the specularity that are below 0.5. Um, that's just kind of like, like, I mean, in real life, yes, 0.5 is the medium specularity value, but it's not like there are exceptions. It can happen. So it's, damn, where's that thing? Okay. So I think this is actually it. So let's try to reduce this just a bit more for now. We're gonna tweak it back. Bum, bum. This is, yeah, okay. Too many different materials. Okay. So I need to go back to my reference. Okay. It's also tricky because all of these pictures have snow and we have green grass. So it's a little bit tricky to kind of like get to these values in the same way as Simon does. But we're getting there, so no worries. I'm looking at the watch, and this is already running for quite a while, so I'm trying to find a quick way to like wrap this up and maybe start the next session, or like basically start wrapping up and try to go for the next session then to fix these things all up. Um, I think we can still though add a couple of lights here. Rip. One thing to know, I think there's actually not many people knowing this, but a spotlight, when you turn on shadows, it's one shadow. If you use a point light, that actually casts 6 shadows. So this is something that you have to keep in mind when you're working on games. You should actually never have point lights casting shadows if they are dynamic lights, because it will cast 6 spotlight shadows. Because a point light shadow map is basically like a cube. It kind of like projects um, the shadows on cube faces, and that is why you need 6 shadow maps to actually make this work. This is fairly important information since I believe not many people actually know that, and it's fairly important because Otherwise, yeah, you'll get super expensive lighting, and you might not want that. In case you didn't know, you can alt drag entities to duplicate them. Alright. So one important thing is since we don't have baked lighting now, what we kind of like need to do is we actually need to work with fill lights. Let's see, like here it's not that visible. If we, well, there's other images from Simon as well. If you want to just get like this mood across a little bit better, this totally helps, so to say, to get some more bounces. And I will go back and forth here with the settings. So now I might actually bring back the skylight to a lower lighting situation now. I think it's still fairly foggy and dark around here. So what we can do, let's see. So we have this window material here. That is great. So what we will do is we will actually make this stronger. Yeah. Okay, we keep this color for now, and I will add a emissive multiplier as well. So I got this here, and we will just put in this, and we will make a parameter, emissive strength, and we'll set this to 1. Save it. So now we got this parameter now in our instance, and we can start getting a lot more emissive. Woo! Alright, that's maybe a bit much. Let's try 20 for now. Okay. So this already looks better. What I also want to do is, like, this robot now, it's only getting the sky reflection, and you know that we only have a green color. So if where did I put my cube? Haha. So if I bring back my cube, we can see we don't really have any localized reflection here besides the screen space reflections that we're getting here. So this robot is actually not getting a lot of reflection here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add sphere reflection capture actors, and now you can see